Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Trust Your Gut podcast. We're back for another great show and another cool guest in line for us today. So I'm going to let Erica take the reins and introduce our new guest.
Hi guys, welcome back. So today we have a beautiful little lady. Her name is Holly, and I found Holly on Instagram through a doctor named Courtney Hunt. She's an OB doctor, I believe, and she speaks regarding. She has a book that's probably what she's mostly known of. It's called Your Spark is Light, and she claims she have found the timing of our soul entering our human body, which is pretty cool. If you haven't checked her out, go check her out. But she is super huge on utilizing sunlight as medicine to heal diseases in conjunction with ketosis. And I gravitated towards Holly because her stories and posts had a ton of food. And anyone who listens to these podcasts or episodes or follows me on Instagram knows that I absolutely love food. I not only love to eat it, but I also love to cook it. I love to try new things and reinvent classics to make them in a way that they will love me back instead of harming me. And Holly seems very real and shows realistic expectations of her foods, which happen a lot of times. They don't turn out the way we want them to. But she also shares her journey. And, she's very realistic. And I really appreciate that in this social media space. So, she is known in the ketosis community and in the sunlight community very well. She lives in Arizona, and she even recently got featured in a magazine piece, I believe. So without further ado, Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is exciting. I'm happy to be here.
So Holly, tell us a little bit and our listeners about yourself. How did you end up in the food and wellness world?
I think I have always been, ever since I was young, really just kind of intrigued with health and wellness. Like growing up, I was a cheerleader. I was really, active and sports oriented. And then just as you kind of age and you get older and you get married and you have babies and the hormones start shifting, things start changing. And so I think just what my kids will attest, I have 5 kids, and they will attest that I have done every fad, trend, whatever, you name it, I've done it. And they would always make fun of me, mom's on some other kick, what health kick is mom on now? And so they would always, kind of be bummed if they'd have to drink green smoothies for a while or whatever. So I feel like I've always kind of gravitated towards health and wellness, but just getting into that late 40s age range, things were shifting and not working anymore. Like the things that worked in my 30s didn't work. So just kind of that evolution of, trying a bunch of different things and then realizing you kind of have to change things as you get older. You just do.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Holly. I'm 47 and I'm like right in that last couple of years going, what
happened? Yep, exactly.
I just talked about this on my stories. I think that we really can honor or should be honoring where we are in our stage of life, especially when you're a woman, we have so many more things hormonally going on than men. And I don't think we honor that enough. So yeah. I appreciate you for sure bringing that up. And again, just being real about it and saying that you have to address it in different ways when you reach certain points in your life. Mm-hmm. So how did you get in contact with Dr. Hunt, and really kind of like what brought you to her?
So, okay, I don't remember exactly how I found her. I just know it was through Instagram. And I do remember when it was. It was in the summer of 2020, probably about 3-4 months into COVID being fresh. And I just felt like something was up. There was something wrong. People were sick. And I just started kind of looking at that going, why are so many people so sick? And I think, how you just scroll through Instagram and somehow somebody makes a comment or whatever, and you end up over on somebody else's page. I think that's how I landed there. And I started listening to her, and I was equally intrigued, but also kind of mortified, because like everything that she said was like going against everything that I thought I knew about health and nutrition and how to approach wellness. And so I just lurked for like probably 6 months. I just kept listening, and I'd show up in her lives in the morning, and I would just listen, and something kept bringing me back. I just was like, there is something here. I don't know what it is, but I got to get to the bottom of it. So that's kind of how I found her. And I found ever since.
What would you say your health status was when you found her? Were you?
Yes. When I found her, I was struggling. I was 30 pounds heavier. My energy was non-existent. I had probably I think pre-diabetic tendencies. My blood sugar was right at that cusp of, being borderline diabetic, and the brain fog was thick. And I know people talk about reading a book and how you just read the same paragraph over and over and over, and it's not sinking in. And just, the telltale, no energy, no sex drive, no nothing. Like it was just, and I just felt bad. I just felt off.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned the whole COVID and seeing all of these people being sick. And I think that this whole journey has sort of lifted the veil on the health of our society as a whole, and really has opened the eyes to people, say like you, and I'm sure many others there are like, I'm not really sure that this is the way I'm supposed to be feeling. Isn't there an alternative to this? And social media has really brought up the ability to see other people saying, no, you're not, you can feel different, you can do things different and achieve a different goal. And I think it's amazing that with the changes you have done in a matter of 2 years, you ended up from being pre-diabetic with all these symptoms, lack of sleep, lack of energy, brain fog, pounds that you probably weren't able, but wanting to get rid of, that you just have changed that through probably minimal money expenditure. Because I think that she does some supplementation, but mostly it's just this thing that's so popular, and we can probably talk for days, but ketosis. So were you ever practicing ketosis before? How do you maintain ketosis? Do you go in and out? What is your thoughts on that thing, ketosis, that's so popular?
Oh, I was triggered by keto because I had heard the horror stories. I'd had friends that have, don't do keto. And I loved my carbs. Like I make homemade bread. I am like a dessert lover. I've got a sweet tooth. So like the thought of ketosis was horrifying to me. Like, I'm like, there's no way, can't do it. But, and like you say, kind of this world online that everybody's got an opinion. And so when I kind of listened to Dr. Hunt, the way she was selling it or showing up for it made so much sense to me. And it was one of those things where it was, okay, if I just approach it slow, like I'm going to try and get into this mindset of like, I don't have to give up carbs forever, but I do have to dial it in for a while until I can feel better. And once I start to feel better, then I can start to reintroduce the carbs. And I think people just get so into this space of I can never have a carb again. And it's this restrictive food mindset. And if you do have kind of a restrictive mindset around food, keto can be really hard because a lot of people struggle with that all or nothing mentality. And, when I first started, I just thought to myself, okay, I'm just going to start slow. This week, I'm going to give up the processed sugars. I will start with cutting out desserts. My nightly thing was eating a big bowl of ice cream at night with some chocolate chips or some syrup or whatever, not thinking, oh, this isn't, affecting how I feel at all. But that was the first thing I gave up. Did that for a week. The next week it was, okay, this week I'm giving up pasta. and did that for a week. The following week, it was, okay, I'm going to give up bread. And then as you started to feel better, you started to realize, wow, those things really do affect how I feel. And once you kind of get that payback of that hit of this is actually helping me feel better, it's so much easier to walk past the carbs and look at them and go, yeah, that's not going to make me feel good. So,
yeah. Holly, I think you are bringing up an interesting point, something that I just recently experienced because Erica knows this, that I did a Candida cleanse. And I think a lot of people have a psychological addiction to carbs, but I also think that there are people that have an overgrowth of Candida that makes them crave sugar and carbs, because I didn't really realize that I had that until after I did the Candida cleanse, and I just don't crave sweets or want them anymore. It's really interesting. So I think that you're bringing up this really important point that a lot of people maybe not thinking of, that we have different ways that our body is like craving this stuff, that we feed into it and then it gets worse.
Yep, exactly. What I noticed too is that what I started to eat more of is what I craved. So like to let go of the sugar and, you know, the things that were making me just crave more sugar. As I started adding more healthy fats, that's what I started craving more of.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to the fact that as we are dealing with a microbiome, we understand that what we feed it will grow a specific bacteria, and there's communication going straight from your stomach to your brain. So that's where that messaging comes from, right? So it is, although it might seem impossible at the beginning, like you said, like, oh, I can't go without bread. In fact, if you don't give that to your body, it won't be asking it. And by to your body, I mean your microbiome. So, so you do go in and out, but initially you did not.
Initially, I didn't. For me, it was my goal was getting rid of the brain fog, to have more energy. Of course, everybody wants to lose a little extra weight. Like that's always, in the back of everybody's brain. But for me, it was just like my brain was so Swiss cheese. And as soon as that started, kind of that brain fog dissipated and I was able to lose a little bit of the weight, then I was able to kind of go, okay, now I can maybe have a fun refeed meal, now every now and again. So now it's like, I try and stay in ketosis most of the time, but then like on the weekends, my husband and I will go out and we'll have pizza or ice cream or, whatever it is that we might want. And then, refeed with the proper nutrition and nutrients with the vitamins and just have a nice, fun weekend. So,
or you're not necessarily thinking about it so much.
Yeah.
So the other thing that Dr. Hunt utilizes is sunlight. And I think this is a medicine that not enough people use. A lot of people up in the higher altitudes are losing a lot of it because they're not exposed to it. And then our lifestyle doesn't allow them to be out, in the summertime when they can actually get some rays in order to be able to produce that vitamin D. So how in particular do you manage the sunrise and the sunset?
Yes. So I did not realize how big of an impact that something like sunlight, we grow up kind of fearing it, being told you're gonna burn, you're gonna, get cancer, all this stuff. So I kind of inherently had this fear of it initially. But after implementing the sunrise part, and in the very beginning, it was really hard. I wasn't sleeping at night very well. So the thought of getting up in the morning at sunrise was really hard to wrap my brain around. I've never been a super morning person. Like that's not been my jam. And just pushing my alarm clock back a couple minutes each day to try and get it to where it aligns with when the sun comes up. Within 2 weeks of doing that, I was sleeping better. I did have to move to another bedroom for a while because my husband was snoring. So we sleep first, but we're good. We're good now. He's actually doing it too, and he's lost weight and he is no longer snoring. So, but for the sunrise, the sunrise part of it, you just don't realize how something so simple, such a simple step that is free and accessible. All you have to do is go outside Like it's that simple. And I think people overthink it. And it's like, no, just go outside. And I'm a little weird. I am like the crazy lady on my Instagram. I'm always on my roof. I have a ladder that I have. Fortunately, I have a roof that doesn't have a super high pitch, but I like to go up, and it's become my little meditative space in the morning. So I go up and I sit on the roof, and my neighbors walk by and they wave at me and they're crazy.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
But it is. So, and
I think that's one of my favorite things to see on your stories.
Oh yeah. And we try and get the sunset too. I feel like the sunrise is not more important, but it is setting the tone for your day. So I try and get sunset when we can, but the sunrise is like, it's a non-negotiable. Like it has to be done.
Yeah. I think that I've talked about sleep before, how I struggled for years after my child. And actually I was never a good sleeper because it was never something that we did in my family growing up. So it took me a while when I realized, like when I was completely depleted of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to figure this out. I cannot function.
Yeah.
And I tried everything under the sun, except the sun.
Except the sun.
Yes. And so the sun has made the most absolute biggest difference. And in fact, for the past couple of weeks, I've been dealing with a lot of other things, taxes included, and have had that mentality of like, I stayed, later than I should have, and I don't want to get up. And it really takes a couple of weeks to get back into that rhythm. And so I'm working on that. I'm going back and seeing the sun, and it's amazing. You don't even have to stay there for very long. How long do you stay up?
It depends on what my day looks like. If I have time, and it's kind of funny living this lifestyle, you literally start to time your days around the sun. Like you will look at your clock and go, okay, sunrise is at this time. My son has to be at school at this time. So I got to be able to get breakfast for him before the sun actually comes up. But then as the sun shifts, you're constantly manipulating your day around the sun a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as like, the sunlight in the morning and the good red light that you're getting there versus your midday sunshine, which, you need that too. And so it's a constant like shifting of like, sometimes like I work from home. And so I'm lucky that way. I do hair. And so I can schedule my clients when I want them. And so sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's going to be my best sun time. I need about 15-minute break here. So I'll give myself a break and I'll just go outside and get my sun. So
that's amazing. So in the morning, do you stay 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Just depends on the day. At least minimum 5. Yeah. Sometimes I'll be on my roof for 30 minutes, like just chilling, just doing a little meditative headspace, but typically most days 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I currently, at the time it's coming out, it's a breakfast time at my household. So I do go out and I stay for 5 minutes. I do what you say. Okay. I, wake up a little bit earlier and I have the breakfast done, and I've been readjusting my morning routine because I've been missing it. And so it's a constant, you have to be flexible with the sun because we have all of these other social pressures, but in order to accommodate, it just takes a little bit of forethought, and 5 minutes will do it. I mean, I can attest to that because a lot of times that's all I have, and your sleep is dramatically different.
Absolutely. I look at it like, how you just think you flipping on a light switch in the morning. That's my light switch in the morning. Like I go outside, flip on the lights. It wakes everybody up. It does all the stuff. It sends the messages to your hormones, whatever. It's literally like flipping a light switch, and it's free.
What about the rest of the day, Holly? Are you just kind of taking breaks whenever you can, or what's your goals during the day for sunlight?
I do try and get some midday sunshine for the vitamin D aspect of it. And yeah, it just really depends on like my work day and how much time I have. If I can spend 5-10 minutes outside getting some vitamin D, I will. A lot of times if I have a break and it's not too hot, I'll go take my dogs for a walk. That's a non-negotiable either. I always walk my dogs in the morning, usually, but sometimes I don't get to that. So I'll walk them later out in the day later. A lot of it depends on the weather and how hot it is. And we're in Arizona, so it gets hot pretty quick.
Yeah.
But you just take advantage of outside when you can. I think we've just kind of evolved to this level of nobody goes outside.
Yeah.
And it makes such a huge difference in your mood.
Yeah, and reinforcing here for our listeners, if you're new, that the sunrise rays are not exactly the same as the midday rays, and that's why there's this differentiation. Or we're asking Holly what is she's doing throughout the day, because the importance of that sunrise is that you're specifically getting this red light that is major for your circadian rhythms to sync. You get that, your eyes see it, and that sends messages to, lo and behold, your gut microbiome to set all of your hormone release and all of that. So it is medicine for your gut microbiome. It is information for your gut microbiome to do what it needs to do. And then that midday light that we always are scared of, it doesn't really have to be midday, but the sun, I believe, has to be 30 degrees above the horizon in order for you to get the full rays. And what that does is it actually utilizes the cholesterol in your skin, the LDL, the bad cholesterol, quote unquote, and it turns it into vitamin D usable in your body. And vitamin D is used for so many processes. So you want to turn that. You get the benefit of the vitamin D and you get the benefit of reducing your actual cholesterol, again, free of charge.
Yep, absolutely. and with the midday sun, I did use, I grew up with the nickname of Casper Shark Bait. White. I mean, kids made fun of me. That will stick forever. But when I first started out, I got the D-Minder app and I just eased into it. And earlier times of the day, like you said, when the sun is, a little lower, so the UV index isn't as high, 2 minutes is what I could start with. 2 minutes of, I was white.
Holly, do you wear sunscreen?
I do not. I have given up the sunscreen. Do not tell my brother-in-law. He's a dermatological surgeon. Like, he removes skin cancers on people. But here's the good news. I did have him do a once over on me. And since I've been doing all this, I do not have any worry spots, like no precancers. So it's safe. It's safe sun exposure. Of course, you don't want to overdo it. The sun can. So you have to be careful. And I think that D-Minder tool is so helpful because you can plug in your information and where you're at, and it literally will tell you how long you should stay out. And so every time I would go out, I would increase it just a little bit more. I am now to the point where I can stay out probably 2 hours in midday sun and not burn. I have not had sunburn since starting this, which is huge.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it also is related to what you eat. I know that while on the carnivore diet, a lot of people don't burn; they just get tan. And I'm super tan, but I also I do wear sunscreen on my face and chest and my neck because vanity, right?
That's the only exception.
And I wear a hat.
I do wear like a mineral sunscreen based makeup or whatever, and I you don't want the wrinkles and things like that, but your body needs the sunlight. So I don't want to have leather skin, but I want to have just enough so that the sun is doing what it needs to do. So
or maybe tan the areas that are less visible. Tan your butt or something.
Yeah, that's what bronzer is for. You just use a little bronzer on your face.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, I have gone completely off sunblock. I do hats and shades and stuff like that. But actually, I've actually gone off wearing sunglasses now as well, ever since I've been using sunlight. I don't need it. I don't need it unless I'm watching soccer and the sun is rising for the kids. Then, I do protect them. But for the most part, I don't even use the sunglasses, which is crazy because I'm in Florida. I mean, the sunshine state. So
right. Isn't it interesting how, like, if you ask people, and of course, if you go to some government websites, they're going to say sunscreen, sun protection, eye protection. So basically hide from the sun.
Right.
And I think there's a really interesting thing here where, Dr. Hunt is talking about all of the healing properties, and the government talks about like the dangers, and that's it. So it's kind of interesting that there's two polar opposites there, because it can't be both. So somebody's wrong, right? Yeah.
truth is always somewhere in the middle. There's both. It's a
Yeah.
yes, like not a either or.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. I think that one of the things they talk about, and you were aware of this, and that's why you entered probably ketosis and stayed on ketosis, was because you were carrying extra glucose attached to all of your red blood cells. So
Yep.
when we have all of that extra sugar in our bodies, your glycation is going to happen a lot faster, and so you get ages, advanced glycation, and you get wrinkles, you get sunspots, you get all of these things. So reducing that by being in a state of maybe ketosis or not eating as many of the dirty carbs, as we call them, will reduce the possibility of cancer showing up, wrinkles, like I said, those age spots and things like that. But, in the medical field, you can't really tell somebody, in order for you to be in the sun, you're going to have to go on ketosis, because that's not what really people are going to do. So it's much easier to just say, just slather on the sunblock. I look at sunblock as a Tylenol or a diabetic pill, or it is the quick fix. It is you don't have to deal with anything else. All you have to do is put sunblock and just continue to live your life. It's okay.
Yep.
Don't address the sun as something that is medicinal or it can be dangerous. It is still it's a star with a lot of radiation exposure. So you do have to look at that. And I love the D-Minder. Maybe we can link it in the show notes, Nicole. It is a great thing to download, especially if you're starting out, to make sure that you're not overexposed, because you will burn for sure.
Yep.
Especially if you're heavy and you're eating carbs and all those things, you're not going to enjoy the sun.
Yep.
But Holly, what are obviously you said sleep. I mean, what benefits do you attribute to the sun in particular? I know we're talking about ketosis and different things, but do you feel like there's some things that stand out for you just regarding the sun?
For sure, my mood. Like, I didn't realize how connected just being outdoors and getting either morning sunshine, or a little midday, it makes such a huge difference on my mood. I actually have been able to, I had quite the history of depression, anxiety growing up. I had been on Zoloft antidepressant for probably 25 years. I am no longer on it. And
Amazing.
so it was a mood state.
Mm-hmm.
It affects you in ways you don't realize until you don't have it.
Right. And then I'm sure that, plus changing your diet probably did wonders for your gut. And we know the gut is, really the gut-brain axis. You're going to get that emotional problems if your gut's a mess. But that's amazing. I love hearing that. And would you say that your weight loss is, enhanced by the sun? Or I know you're doing the ketosis, but do you feel like that's really made a huge difference?
I do think the sun plays a big role in that. I think it's just this big puzzle piece that where, you have your ketosis, you have sunshine, you have sleep, you have nutrition, vitamins, food, whatever, they all play a role. And if you take any one piece of those out, sure, you're still going to get, results. But I think when you tie all of it together, it is like the ultimate package. You almost feel like you have tapped into the fountain of youth, because I had no idea what I was missing. You don't know how good you can feel until you feel that good. And then you realize how bad you felt before. And I think we tend to normalize feeling bad when we should normalize feeling good. People just are always not feeling good. And that's not normal. We shouldn't feel
100%. 100%. I think we say this on the podcast often, that you just don't know how bad you felt until you felt good.
Yep.
And there is no way to explain that. You can tell me you eat well and you feel all right, and all of a sudden you start making 2 to 3 changes, especially with the sunlight and the diet, and your gut microbiome, all of a sudden, like you said, it rejuvenates itself and you feel at least 10 years younger. You might not look 10 years younger, but pretty quickly you start feeling 10 years younger. It is amazing. Amazing. It is the fountain of youth for sure. So we've said that already. You try to go and see the sunrise, and you climb up your roof to see that, and sunset as much as you can. And you do a little bit of in between the day. What else do you try and fit in the day? What else is in as part of Holly's day?
Like a day, like what a typical day would look like for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be sunrise, absolutely. Get I have one left at home, get him off to school. Usually I walk my dogs. I try and get that in the morning. I walk 2 miles with them. Just at a nice brisk, pace. And then depending on what my day has ahead of me, if I have a lot of clients or just whatever, I will try and get in like maybe a 20 or a 30-minute HIIT workout. I am a big fan of free YouTube videos. There's so much out there for free. I don't want to have to spend extra money on anything. And so
Love it.
About free. So I find a couple of different YouTube channels that I follow, a couple of HIIT workouts. Sometimes I add in weights, or it just depends on what mood I'm in. I don't really follow a program. And then I'm typically not point. I'm not a huge breakfast eater, so I guess it would be kind of like an intermittent fasting-ish. I've never been a huge breakfast eater. When I did start out with Dr. Hunt, she did want me to eat breakfast starting out so that my body could get used to fat and burning fat for fuel. And I did do that, right? In the very beginning, did that. And then after a while, it just kind of naturally gets to this point where you're just not hungry. And so you're not, I'm more intuitive that way. I don't want to feed my body if my body doesn't want to eat. Like I don't want to force feed it. So I'm at the point now where my morning is just, I'll exercise. I go get my coffee. I put some heavy cream and MCT in it. And that's usually my breakfast. That will tide me over. And then I don't eat lunch until, 12 or 1. And I'll do just a typical ketogenic meal. Usually it's really simple. I know I do post a lot of stuff on my feed of recipes and things like that, but that's not the common thing. The common thing is to grab a couple hard-boiled eggs, some string cheese, and a pack of almonds or some olives or something like that.
Okay.
So easy. And then sometimes I'll play in the kitchen with new recipes if I have time, or I'm working on clients, and then I make dinner for the family. My husband is now eating this way. He's lost 30 pounds. My teenage son will eat this way. He's a swimmer, so he can tolerate a lot more carbs. So he kind of rolls his eyes at what we eat. But most of the time, he's eating pretty much the same stuff that we are. But then you try and get the sunset in and get to bed at a reasonable hour. I stopped eating 3 to 4 hours before bed. That was one of the things that I changed early on was, okay, no eating after sunset. That made a huge difference too. I didn't realize how much of an impact that had on my sleep until I got an Oura ring and started tracking, which I know that you don't have to have it, but I like the data. I like to get the feedback. I didn't realize how much eating late really impacts your sleep. And so that was one of the first things to go was, okay, I'm just going to drink water or have some tea, after dinner and nothing before bed. And then it's just rinse and repeat. Same thing.
Yeah, I like that.
Very good. No, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think once you get into your routine, I think probably where maybe there's a difference in, for me specifically, is that I would more focus on, I don't know what the quality of the meats you're doing, if you're doing grass-fed only. And then I don't do a lot of the lactose stuff. I try to do more fermented. So I focus more on fibers. I do consider lectins. So I remove those as much as I can. And what was the other thing? I still with the carbs, I don't 100% shut down with the carbs, although I'm pretty low and I do clean carbs. So it's more, the carbs are coming more from vegetables, right? In order to get the actual fiber in there. How about you, Nicole? How are you doing with carbs and ketosis? Where are you sitting?
Yeah, I haven't checked my glucose in a very long time, but I typically follow pretty much a animal-based diet and mostly, beef, pork, chicken, lamb. I do buy a lot of pasture raised. I love Primal Pastures. I'll put a code down below for a discount, but I try to buy as much as that as possible. And I don't do a lot of dairy. And the eggs, are they seem to bug me unless I have something else with it. So that's typically my diet. I don't eat much plant foods at all. And then, except for like when I do need, I'll tell you what I do eat. It's basically artichoke hearts. I love those. I live in California. It's obviously, we all eat them. And avocados is a California thing. And then I will occasionally have some asparagus, things that have good prebiotic fiber. And when I have trouble sleeping, so typically I don't eat a whole lot of carbs, but when I have problems sleeping or have anxiety, which I've been finding I'm, entering this perimenopausal nonsense, the carbs help me. And so like the other night I was having problems sleeping and I ate a banana and I went to sleep. So I will use them. I'm not afraid of them. I just don't eat them very much. I get most of my nutrition from, animal-based foods. Like I was just sitting here drinking oxtail broth as we were talking. So that's kind of where I'm at. So Erica and I, in case you haven't noticed, we both are focusing on gut health. We come from a little bit different perspective. I had a history of colitis, so I kind of got away from plants entirely, and now I'm using them when I need to. I think they're, fun and and I like fruit. I went a little too crazy on the fruit for a while, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it that can work. So I'm not a person that feels like there's one way for everybody and is very dogmatic. I actually really avoid that. But
Yep,
I love to see the different variations of the ways that people are being successful, because I do think that there's quite a few ways to do it. And you're obviously very successful with what you're doing and it's working for you. So thanks so much for coming and sharing your story. It's really interesting. We try to interview people that have expertise in certain areas or that, have a passion for something. And we've just now said, we need to hear from people that are just living it,
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm expert.
Well, you do. You got the expert on you.
It's just,
You got the expert on you.
It is practical application. I am not a nutritionist. I'm not an exercise trainer, anything like that. It's literally just implementing, like taking the steps. And I totally agree with what you're saying. Anytime you get too off into the extremes, that's dangerous. And I think that you have to find what works for you, and what works for me is not going to be the same thing that works for the next person. So I think you have to be really careful with going, well, I'm going to do exactly what that person is doing because it worked for them. Everybody's makeup is different. And so it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of, okay, that food didn't make me feel good. Maybe I need to eliminate it for a while or whatever. Fortunately, I've been lucky. Not a lot of stuff bothers me. So I've been pretty lucky, and I'm open to, eating whatever. But I think it's really important to learn how to make the food work for you and not against you, like you did with the banana. Perfect example. You have to make it work for you.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree, ladies. I love the fact that we have such a variety of people coming onto our show, because we are all doing the best that we can. We're gathering up a lot of knowledge for you guys, and you guys can be directed to whatever you feel is going to help you the most, and try things out, like Holly said, because you never know. And always, always honor where you start, where you're starting from, where you want to go, and the stage of life that you are in, because we keep talking about perimenopause and it's a real thing.
Yes.
Now, physiologically, after we go through menopause, we will be much closer to men, but trying to address our physiology right now, like men, is completely bonkers, in my opinion. We are just not built the same. Maybe after menopause, we can address that a little bit different. But for all you girls out there, if there's anybody that's younger and you are still rearing children and your breast, somebody approached me recently and asked me how they should OMAD and fast while breastfeeding. And I'm like, what? You should.
Yeah.
No.
How about eat more?
Yeah.
When you think you've had enough, just eat more. So what do you want to leave our listeners with? Maybe 3 things you want to leave them with.
Okay. 3 things. I think the first one would be, don't overthink it. Like, we really tend to, our minds want to make things so complex, and we're so into doing things the right way that it's so easy to get into those extremes like you talked about. Just don't overthink it. Don't make things harder than they need to be. I know when I first started, it was like, okay, what kind of bacon do I have to buy? How, can I see the sun? If it's through the trees, does it count? It's like, just simplify everything, take it to the very, very basics, and just change one or two things at a time. Get good at those one or two things, layer it in, build your foundation, then go to the next level. So don't overcomplicate things. I would say point 2 would be consistency over perfection.
Yep.
I think that we tend to want to do things perfectly. It's that brain thing, in our society, we have to be great at everything. We're not. You're going to fail. You're going to fall off. You're going to screw up, and it's okay if you just get back on. And as long as the consistency part, outweighs everything else, you'll get there. So I think that would be point 2. Point 3, I think for me would be, you absolutely have to believe in yourself. And if you don't have that component, it's going to be so much harder. Like I really do feel like, I know it's the woo woo part, but visualizing and seeing yourself well and trying to embrace the feelings of what it would feel like to go out and buy the bikini that you want to wear or whatever, you have to embrace those emotions, because those emotions are going to help you make the choices that are going to get you to where you want to be. And so when you believe it, you are much more likely to implement the steps, and the implementing is the hardest part. Like that is, we can talk about it all day long, but you gotta apply the steps. And if you don't do it, it's gonna change. So I think just believe in yourself that you can do it. Like it can be done. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I have one last question.
Okay.
We talk about gut microbiome and the fact that it has a direct link to our brain, and therefore emotional stabilizing your mood and all that is so important. And you've mentioned how you're no longer taking mood stabilizers, but I like to make sure that people out there are knowing that there is a very, very simple way to affect your gut microbiome, and is by just feeling happy and releasing those hormones. And we do that by laughing very easily. So what is the one thing that makes you laugh uncontrollably?
My kids, and my granddaughter. I have a granddaughter who's 2.5. Anytime you put her in front of me, she will make me crack up. Like she's hysterical. And my kids are just fun. They're all mostly adults now. And we've always had such a good, fun time growing up, and I've never hated raising teenagers or anything like that. Yeah, they come with challenges, but they will always make me laugh. Always, always. Guaranteed.
I love that. I love that. I don't know, guys, if you're not following Holly on Instagram, you should. She, first of all, does not look like a grandmother. I'm just going to put that out there. Her guns are like something to hashtag goals, and very, very motivational. I love seeing people doing good for themselves. Thank you so very much for joining us. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. What a treat. It's been a joy. Thank you.